right. Yeah, have I got an analogy for you right freaking now? And this goes out to the, this goes out to the non-competitors, right? This goes out to the lifters who simply are lifting because they want the gains that they will receive from it. And it's not to, get up on stage and compete with anybody else, because that competition in and of itself ends up being a very clear and distinct focal point of your ability to make some shit happen, right? Whereas, for the regular lifter, you bulk up, you cut down some, you never get too lean, you never get like too soft either. Nobody should get too soft, of course, but there's no focal point. There's no pinnacle to reach such that you can either hit it or fail to hit it and have a sense of reflection of like, fuck, crap, I didn't do enough, And that's where I think a lot of characters might be putting themselves in a position to have to think back, however long in the future. Oh man, I should have done more. I should have worked out harder. I should have worked out more often. I shouldn't have skipped so many times. I should have actually stuck to a diet. I should have. And it's so many I should have statements, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? It's simply a situation of fuck. It's cool enough with the competitions or like any real specific time frame based goals, at least for me, because that was a good test, right? Can I actually stick to a pretty dang solid diet? And I mean, usually I can. I've bulked up and cut down I don't know how many times, and then in every cut I end up getting pretty lean. But actually getting that lean, that was a test. I've never done it before. So am I able to do it? Can I actually stick to it? I mean, as much belief as I can have, there's no data to prove it one way or the other definitively. So that's a good example of me being able to finish that whole competition season and say, oh my God, whoa, must have just barely done enough at least, right? But unless you have a situation like that, be it a powerlifting meet, be it a bodybuilding thing, be it like a weight loss challenge, you want to hit 10% body fat by whenever, and you have some sort of stake motivating you to actually do it. If you kill it or if you fall short, both of those can be looked at as positive scenarios. If you kill it, you just prove to yourself that you can do it, and now you've raised your internal bar of what you think you can reach, because you just proved to yourself you could do something pretty dang cool, at least based on like your own standards, right? And if you fall short, hopefully at least it ends up being an eye-opening event of like, fuck, yeah, I guess I didn't really do enough this time. Shit. All right. And then, at least if you got a little bit of chip on your shoulder kind of mentality, you can say, all right, I'm going to make this shit happen this time. I'm going to learn from my mistakes, But if you never have an event like that, or like a goal or something, and it's, I mean, there's most certainly more pressure when a lot of people are watching you to see if you're going to actually be able to do something, because, some people might look at that as a negative. Frankly, I only see that as a positive, at least for me in my case, right? Because, I mean, it's not often, right? I mean, I feel like even if I didn't bring you guys along with me, I'd still kill it. But that's an extra motivating force. It's like, all right, these guys are watching, let's go extra crazy, So I think that's a bit of a bonus for me, which is, kind of rare to come by. But if it's just you, and you've got this specific goal, you say you want to do something, and there's nothing else to hold you to it except for yourself. I mean, we've all been there, right? You're dieting down, at least, if you have been there. You go in the fridge, you go in the pantry, you grab the ice cream out of the freezer. All right, I've got this specific goal, but this is going to feel good to do right now, and it's going to interfere. Screw it, let's just get some scoops in here. Finish a whole pint of Ben & Jerry's, and then you got to say, shit, fuck, But I guess what I'm getting at is, if you're working out currently, pretty locked in, you've got enough time to put a lot of energy into it. Nothing's really stopping you from having a pretty solid routine. That is incredibly valuable. And, I see it, I see the comments, not like a ton, but sometimes. And it's guys where they're, who's to say if it's a true thing? Some guys are just trolling, but like it's comments, oh man, I wish I would have locked in harder when I was younger, right? I mean, I worked out pretty consistently, but I never took my diet seriously or anything else. So that's kind of the cool part, I guess, of sort of giving yourself or putting yourself in a position of having a specific time frame to make some shit happen. Because then, like I just said a second ago, you'll either hit it, prove to yourself you can do it, or, you know, show yourself, okay, I got to put more into it if I really want to make this happen next time. But then, you know, you can still come back and get after it. The problem is, if you don't have an event like that, if you don't have a time frame like that, or anybody to hold you accountable, then that reflective moment of, oh man, yeah, I could have done more, that might happen far into the future by the time that you can no longer go back, right? I mean, I'm not one to say it's never too late to get into the gym. Quite the freaking opposite. You know, anybody of any freaking age and any freaking, you know, endeavor or, you know, way of life should all be pumping iron, at least, you know, to a reasonable degree. But, you know, let's not kid ourselves. You've got 10 years in your 20s, right? You've got 10 years in your 30s. You got 10 years in your 40s, and they disappear. They're gone, right? And there's no undoing what happened during them. So, if that's the case, and you're at least reasonably concerned with, you know, how you're going to feel personally about your life in the future, then at least in some small vector or field, I think it's an awesome idea to go crazy hard at something and really push yourself to at least what you might call the limit on, you know, any given sort of thing. Because at least in the future, you'll have something to look back on and think, all right, yeah, either that was freaking badass, or you can at least say, yeah, I was a total gym nut in my 20s. I don't know what I was thinking, it was crazy. But you're never going to look back and think, man, I went too hard. Yeah, I put too much effort into that. Wow, I was being way too consistent in, you know, whatever. Oh, how many times are people going to say in the future, man, I wish I slacked off more. Oh, dude, I should have gone way... Man, I was spending so much energy doing that stuff. Oh, never happens, right? Or at least I never freaking see it, you know? So that's a good little sort of thought process, I feel, if you're ever, you know, just a little out of it. You know, we've all been there. We've all kind of had that situation. Things are starting to feel monotonous. You know, days kind of bleed into the next. You know, sometimes you're just not in the most motivated freaking mindset. But if you can at least maintain this routine that you've given yourself, look, man, I'm sure we can all look back at certain periods of time and say, dude, I was fucking losing my mind for a couple of months, you know, blank, or however long ago, or, you know, some kind of shit just happened that's completely out of your control. Right? But the fact that you can say that means that you came out of it, you know, so why dig yourself into a deeper hole if you're going through something by slacking off and then having to catch back up towards whatever that end goal was at the time, right? So that's, I guess, is my finisher statement, right? Just keep on freaking moving forward, right? Regardless of, you know, circumstance or certain feelings or just whatever. Because at the end of it, you'll always be able to look back and think, all right, well, you know, at least I did something, right? Because just sitting around doing nothing, no fun. Absolutely no freaking fun whatsoever. But, all right. Have I got a question for you? Have I got a freaking question for you to potentially ponder over? How long can you be locked in for? How long do you think you can theoretically lock in, you know, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? You know, how many can sit, and this is just fitness, but it branches off into regular life, I feel. But, you know, how long can you consistently give yourself an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours a day? 2 would be kind of long. Let's say hour minimum to practice something that you like. Working out's one of them. And, you know, have that not be the challenge, right? It's and that comes down to a simple kind of belief system, I feel, right? Because if you were to ask that question to somebody, you know, let's say you've got a lie detector that actually works, so you know if they're telling the truth or not, and, you know, they barely work out 10 days a month, which is such a crazy system of, like, half in, half out, 1 foot in, but still not really jumping over the edge yet. Because, I mean, how many people don't work out at all? And then how many people work out and they're locked in for real? It's a very small percentage, I feel, or at least relatively, or just on the fringe, where they dabble, but they pull back. You know, they're honestly, It's the worst of both worlds. You're getting no gains, and you're only getting like the same repeated, like basically first few weeks of working out where it's just basically difficult. You know, you're not really getting the fun out of it yet, right? So if you were to ask anybody like that, were they, you know, I mean, I've heard it before. Oh, I was good in the summer, and then, you know, I got back to school. You know, I just took a couple months off. Do you think they would really have a confident answer and like, yeah, I can guarantee I'm gonna be locked in the next year. I can guarantee I can lock in the next 3 years. I can guarantee I'm gonna do my cardio consistently. I can guarantee I can get after it. And you know, don't be fooled. I'm not saying this as though like you have to do it or else I'm gonna think less of you. Right? That's not the purpose here. It's something for you to do for you because you get the benefits out of it. Right? It's not for anybody else. You know, who cares? So what I'm kind of getting at is the guys who, you know, going to the gym, having a consistent routine, you know, getting after it on the regular, they believe they can do it. It's not even a question of belief. They simply know it. They know that's what they do because they identify as being locked in, you know, right? I mean, there's a really good quote, or not quote, but kind of like a speech. It's, I forget his name. Well as freaking known, like self-help kind of motivational speaker. What's a good description? Just like conventionally masculine looking dude. I can't describe him. I don't know his name. I think he's with Theo Vaughn or something. And he's basically saying like, you know, let's say somebody quit smoking, right? And they tell you like, oh dude, I'm 10 days, I haven't smoked for 10 days. You know, I haven't drank for 3 days. All right. And then he says, well, why are you counting? Right? Are you a non-smoker? Have you really quit, or are you just abstaining because you still identify with the habit? You know? So what I'm trying to get at is there's a certain idea of practice without striving, right? Getting into a routine, getting into a continuous loop of effort and consistency, as well as reaping the rewards from it, but not having that feel like a grind, because that's simply what you do. You know, you wouldn't look at let's say alternate universe where a damn, you know, blue whale or a freaking bluefin tuna could speak, right? They're not going to say, oh my God, I got to swim today. Oh, I got to freaking swim around today. Oh my God. No chance. That's what they do. You know, it's not a question of if or if it's going to be difficult. It's just what they do, you know? So it's almost kind of just breaking past a certain barrier where you haven't locked in yet, but you have this belief that you know you can do it, and that's what you're going to do, such that it's not even an if. It's not a question of if you're going to do it. It's only a question of when, you know? And in the beginning, that might sound a little delusional, right? I mean, there's guys where they're, oh, dude, I'm locking in this year. 2026, that's my year. Yo, summer of 2025 is gonna be a movie, bro. It's gonna be nuts. I'm gonna make this shit happen. I mean, I'm certainly not one to put anybody down, but I mean, let's be realistic here. How many times do you hear somebody say that and you believe them 100%? Not often. Not often, if ever, because there's no action to back up that statement. You know, it's simply a wish at that point. You know, you're putting out in the world, I want to make this shit happen. Right? Where's the action? You know, so that's where I kind of say, you know, don't even freak about trying to, you know, tell anybody what you're going to do, posting about what you're going to do. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've, because I'm tuned in, right? I've been, I say tuned in. I really mean I'm a freaking phone addict, and I'm constantly scrolling for like a dopamine rush. But with the TikTok and everything, I mean, for the last really ever since it kind of blew up, I mean, I've been watching all sorts of fitness characters, so I see them, and I see these same posts. Dude, I'm gonna make this shit happen, right? Just wait for it. And then, you know, didn't see the guy for years after that, right? So I guess what I'm getting at is there's a lot of talk, right? And it's completely up to you as an individual, if you're doing the talking, to back it up with the walk itself. And that's where I always tend to be a little more, I guess you could kind of say, reclusive with my goals, because I'm not really seeking any external validation to motivate me. right? Like, I'm not gonna, I don't know how to exactly describe it apart from that, but it's like, I don't need to tell anybody what I'm gonna do, right? Because I know in my freaking mind, and I can kind of, I don't want to say like foresee the future, but I know barring any extreme events, I'm gonna keep after it like nothing's stopping me, right? So it's kind of a situation where sometimes I think, you know, if you have to talk about how hard you're going to go and how much you're going to lock in, and, you know, it's like, oh, you know, dieting, man. You know, if you have to really put out into the world just how hard you're going to go and how much effort you're putting into it, you know, it makes me kind of question, are you just trying to validate that, not only to anybody else looking at you, but also, like, to yourself deep down, you know? Because well, you know, if you really want people to think you're going to do something, and then in your, you know, in your actual subconscious mind, maybe you don't even know it for real, it's real deep in there, if you might know kind of at your core you're not really going to do it, or maybe you don't know, and you know, your patterns and your actions just don't represent it, then obviously you're going to try to convince anybody as much as possible, and just, you know, hype yourself up like that, which I'm not going to dog on anybody for doing that, but I mean, there's a certain coolness factor to the grinding in silence meme. But if you say you're grinding in silence, then you're no longer grinding in silence, you see? So it's it's kind of like how some things go unspoken, you know, or, you know, go without saying, right? So that's where that's what that barrier I'm talking about was. You know, you've got a couple of months before anything is really going to change if you get into the gym, or if you get into a certain, like, dieting phase, be it bulking up or cutting down, and it takes a while. I mean, I think the coolest thing about the gym as like a just kind of life lesson aspect, you know, isn't just, you know, going hard and the benefits that you get from being more, you know, physically active, but just the fact that it's hard. Like, it, you know, if you really push it, working out is pretty hard. Now, it's fun because it's hard, but it doesn't change the fact that it's still a lot of effort, and you don't really get the reward, at least in terms of like a physical change, for months down the line, you know? So it's never about where you are at any given current moment. It's all about where you're headed in the future. And I think that's a really good outlook to have just in general, you know, because so many people are at so many different levels of advancement, just freaking, you know, societally, just, you know, in any given aspect of life, right? People are all the way at the top and all the way at the bottom, and you're somewhere right in the freaking middle. So, you know, comparison's the thief of joy. But if you know you're on track, if you know you're going to lock in and you don't have to tell anybody because you know that your actions are going to speak for you, then it's not a question of looking at somebody and thinking, oh my gosh, that guy's so much bigger than me. That guy's been lifting for so much longer than me. He can do this much weight. He can do this much whatever. I mean, I've never really thought that way. I didn't. Made that shit happen. Went at least close to as hard as I could have gone on those sets. It gets a little ambiguous, right? Because it's a little tricky. Because let's say I was just a little bit extra hyped for those sets of chest press and those sets of dumbbells. Just how many more reps could I have done? You know, that's the kind of reflection I want to look at my training and actually put a little bit of thought into it and think, okay, did I really go as hard as I could? Right? Was there anything else I could have done? Should I maybe have sped up, slowed down a little? You know, I'm not saying I'm looking back at that workout like, oh my God, I should have done it like this. I'm not saying like that, right? But, you know, if you've got a crazy heavy set of something or other, or just, you know, a light squeezing, burning set of something, and it's a real working set that you want to take to failure, you know, it's not like it's so easy to train to complete failure that you can completely just do it on demand. You know, it's not that simple of a thing to do, because you really have to get into a certain state, and the harder you go, the more consistently, the easier it is to do. You know, I mean, if you took a beginner and put him under a chest press with a manageable weight, let's say he could easily do 10 reps, you know, it'd be kind of hard to get into 15, and 20 is his actual like physical limit. Like, let's say studies were done for a guy his size with his strength level and, you know, exposure, or, you know, let's say you got to a point where you could analyze his muscle fibers and really calculate just how much like potential work he could do. Let's say 20 is the real limit, right? If you took a random guy off the street where 20 was his real limit and he's never trained before, when do you think he's going to stop? You know, when do you think he's going to say, I can't do anymore? At 20? Probably not. Maybe even 10. You know, I've seen guys where they wanted to stop a set, and then luckily they've got some boys next to him who are like yelling at him like, keep going, don't rack that shit. And then the guy does another 10 reps of pendulum squats. So it's like, you're about to rack it with 10 reps in reserve? Now, as a beginner, that's not a bad thing, because you're still working up to it, right? I wouldn't expect, even when I look back at myself as a beginner, you know, I wasn't taking every set to like complete perfect failure. Frankly, I was doing a lot of like just kind of fluff junk volume, I think. Not total junk. I mean, even I was definitely pushing myself pretty hard, but I could have definitely optimized my earlier workouts for sure. But what are you gonna do? It's freaking years ago. But, you know, over time, as years progress, like anything, you know, if you come to the gym, essentially the practice that you're engaging in is physically pushing yourself. That's the activity that we're all coming to the gym to do. So would it not make sense that the longer you do it, the better you should get at it, right? Like if someone's been lifting for 5 years versus someone who's been lifting for 2 years, if you could somehow like, you know, put a damn neural scanner on their head with the little like sticky pads and stuff and get a reading of their like physical exertion levels and just how hard they're pushing themselves, the guy who's been lifting for a while should be pushing himself harder than the guy who's just kind of a beginner, you know, because he's gotten better at it. But I think there's a certain comfort level, plus there's a lot of kind of like mental traps you can get stuck in that might make you want to pull back, right? I mean, we hear reps in reserve, we hear overtraining, we hear stimulus to fatigue ratio. I mean, all these kind of factors can very easily be twisted in somebody's mind as a lifter to think, oh, I don't want to go too hard. I mean, you know, excuse my language. Are you freaking kidding me? You don't want to go too hard? That's nuts. I mean, I never want to even think that. You know, it's a little different if you're dieting and you're just maintaining your muscle, right? That's a different state. But if you're in an off season or you're just main gaining and you're physically trying to make progress and break new ground, be it size, be it strength, I mean, shit, man, even if you're a damn, what do they call it? Hybrid athlete, right? Really, you want to go easy on your sprints, or you want to pull it? It's like, oh, I'm running the 5K. I did a mile. I don't want to go too hard. Like, dude, I think that is an absolute deterrent to progress. I don't want to go too hard, and that's something you should be thinking, right? It's, I mean, I feel like in my mind, it's maybe not a fear per se. Like I'm not driven when I come to these workouts, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be such a piece of shit if I can't push this set to failure. I've heard people say that. I think it's a very twisted sense of motivation, right? But it's not so much of, okay, I'm less than if I can't push it to failure. It's more so, I know I'm capable of doing it. I want to see how hard I can push it, you know? So that's my kind of driving force. So if that's the case, and I have everything in order, sleep, diet, hydration, I mean, I got my damn gallon jug of electrolytes right here with me. You know, I'm trying to keep myself extra hydrated so I can have proper electrolyte balance and everything else. If I want all that to be in order, and I do get it in order, and then I come to the gym, shit, man, right? Why chill, you know? If you're, what's the word I'm thinking of? I guess I can't think of a different analogy than that. But if everything's in order, why not go as hard as you can? Right? Now, of course, I'm not saying, you know, go for a 4-plate bench if you've never done it, right? But I mean regular working sets. You know, if you pick a weight where you can do 10 reps, guaranteed, are you really going to go for 10? In your mind, are you thinking, okay, if I get 10, that'll be good enough? No, man, right? That freaking sucks. It's not like I do this every set. But for a good portion of my working sets, I mean, I'm trying to not even get a number in my mind. Like, I mean, of course I do. It's hard not to, right? It's hard for me to get on the incline dumbbell and not like have a realistic expectation. Like, okay, I might get 12, I don't know, I might get 10, you know, we'll see, right? It's hard not to do that, but I try not to, right? My real goal is I want to see just how many I can do, right? So in the beginning, I mean, those first 5 reps of the dumbbell bench and the 5 reps of that chest press, I mean, I'm not saying it was nothing, but those are well within my capability as a lifter. So why would I kind of just want to cut it when I know I'm still within an amount of reps that is in my freaking, you know, wheelhouse? You know, I want to take it further, push it beyond plus ultra to the point where like this shit ain't moving, you know, to the point where my body isn't even listening to my mind, and I'm trying to get it to push harder, but it just won't. You know, that's what a lot of working sets should be like. And if they're not, dude, I mean, you know, like with any motivation, where your mind goes, the body will follow. It's the same thing with the gym. You know, we talk so much about diet and training and like your style and your frequency. Like, should I be doing full body? Would I be Dorian Yates size if I did full body every other day? You know, oh, maybe. Come on, let's get real here, right? But what I think differentiates guys who kill it versus guys who are kind of just engaging in it is the ones who go nuts, you know? And I'm not saying you have to be screaming every set. I mean, I see a lot of guys where they're posting their workout edits and they're totally stone face with like 150-pound dumbbells. I know the guy's still killing it, but you know, he might not look like it just by like his expressions, right? But it's the ones that I feel just want to see how hard they can go. And in that pursuit, even if they don't really match that 100% perfect level, maybe their sleep was off, maybe their hydration was off, maybe whatever. You can list a million circumstances. If that's still their basic main objective, then I think they're set up way better. Because the harder you go in the gym, the more stimulus you're going to come home with, stimulus and fatigue. So now your body's like, shit, man, I got to deal with this. Odds are, dude, what's your number one basic, counter to bodily damage, right? Energy, food. So if you really, get yourself going in the gym and then come back, you're giving yourself a chore to recover from. So odds are you're going to start eating more, and then you're going to start growing more. You're going to get stronger. You're going to come to the gym with an ability to lift heavier weights, and odds are that'll be a motivating factor in and of itself. That'll make you go even harder going forward. And then it's just a damn upward spiral, right? But, it's such that you need to push yourself that little extra percent on the regular so that you can continue to make those kind of exponential gains, right? And I say exponential, obviously, it's actually diminishing, right? I mean, gains get harder to get the longer you train. But in that sense, you have to kind of adapt and go harder as time progresses, right? So I guess my question to you is, look back at your training for the last 6 months, or look back at where you were a year ago, or 2 years ago, or for anybody who's lifting for a while, 5 years ago, right? I'm not talking size, I'm not talking strength, I'm not even talking like just experience and the fact that you now know how to do more different styles of working sets and everything else. And I don't care what splits you've been doing. Are you pushing yourself harder than you were back then? Because odds are, if you're not, and that's not a bad thing. That's a really good thing to be able to admit to yourself, because the first step to solving a problem is to identify it. Like when I look back at my lifts, I'm a bit steadier now. Like I think I've got a pretty good grasp of pushing it hard. I want to improve, of course, always. But I think I'm getting close to solid with my regular lifts intensity. But I mean, looking back when I was a beginner, I would really have days where I'd have to kind of look back and think, man, have I really been getting after it? Have I really been killing it? I feel like that it's usually just a specific lift. Either I went extra hard and showed myself that I could do it, and it's like, dude, I need to get this level of intensity every lift. What the hell have I been doing? Or I kind of slacked off, and that was a wake-up call, And I got to think, come on, I didn't just go through the process of coming to the gym, getting my freaking gym outfit on and everything else, and my pre-workout and my music and everything. I didn't just do that to show up and just scrap around. Like, no, I want to freaking get after it, right? So in either case, the quicker you can have a wake-up call and get a certain sense of urgency where you're like, all right, I need to make tomorrow different than today. The sooner you can do that, the better. That's my mind, right? So it's kind of always just a certain sense of leveling up, kind of internally, if you can imagine. And for the non-initiated, that might sound like nonsense. For anybody who doesn't work out, I mean, they don't get what we're talking about here. It's like, I mean, it's kind of crazy. Somebody might look at that and say, oh, you can bench 300 pounds? Okay. You only used to be able to do 200? Oh, wow, you can bench another 100 pounds. Look, man, they don't get it. And it's not your responsibility to, explain it either, right? I think we all understand that, the process of working out, just overall, it's definitely a pretty damn personal thing. So don't be dissuaded by anybody's lack of approval or just, thoughts or comments or anything else. Right? If this is something you want to get into, the only thing stopping you is simply how hard you're willing to take it. Right? And in that sense, I mean, every lifter is responsible for their own gains. So all I can do is kind of explain what's helped me and hope you kind of take a couple of points from it. But I'm actually kind of curious now. I want to hear if you guys ever had a moment where you were like that, because I've had a few, like especially in my kind of the home gym in my basement back when I was in high school with my parents. One of the biggest ones I still remember. I was totally just being stupid. I was irresponsible with my time. I stayed up extra late doing some kind of final project that I was like slacking on. So, I put myself in this difficult position. Like it wasn't just because I was totally like, super time responsible or anything. But it's like 2 a.m. I'm pretty tired. I haven't lifted yet. I had chest that day, and right next to me, because my basement bedroom was half bed, half gym. Just like a little one, but it was good enough for me. So I had chest, and I'm like, all right, I can either lay down, go to sleep, or I can get after it, right? And let's be real. If I were to just go to sleep, that probably would have been better. I would have been better rested, and then be able to have a better lift the next day. Because I had to wake up at 7, so kind of not really setting myself up for awesome recovery at the time. But in my mind, I had kind of given myself this circumstance, because this was early when I was working out. I started watching Baki. That was a real hype ass show for me. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, because I wasn't thinking, okay, I want to just take a rest day, it'll be more effective. That wasn't the thought process. The thought process was, dude, I'm too tired to lift right now, I don't want to do it. That was the kind of mental state. And I had a bit of a WWBD. Like, what would Baki do? Would Baki lay down and freaking give up on his training, or would he go nuts? I know it seems kind of silly, but it was actually pretty damn motivating for me. So I jump out of bed, had a crazy chest day, and then when I laid back down, extra tired, now about to get real shitty sleep. My next day was going to be kind of off, but just the process of doing it, because it was extra difficult at the time, really freaking amped me up. So if you ever had a situation like that, I'd love to hear it, because I'm sure that'll get me amped up in return. There's no perfect lift. Any lift that anybody does can be a couple of goslings floating around there. But any lift that anybody ever does, it can be improved, right? But don't take that as don't look at that in a pessimistic kind of way. I think a lot of guys have that, or they don't think about it like that, but it's more so, maybe not just that topic, just like an overall approach to life. And if you narrow that down to an approach to lifting, that's a lot of work. Like, for what? Oh, dude. What do you mean I can't eat that? What do you mean I have to eat? Cardio? Oh, just, gross. And somebody with an approach like that, who can only highlight the negatives or the drawbacks or the effort something takes, look, man, no chance anybody with that mentality would ever do a set of hack squats, or do a set of leg press, or do it even a hard leg day at all, right? It's not in their nature, you know. So try to separate yourself from anybody like that as much as possible. Not like you know, it's not like an on contact contagion, but if you're around people like that a lot, dude, I mean, at least to some degree, their thought processes might seep into your own. You know, I reference this guy a lot. I don't know if he knows that I'm talking about him. I mean, he probably doesn't even watch these, so I mean, I don't think so. But I knew a guy where every time I'd show up to the gym, hey man, what's up? Oh, squats. Fucking hate my life. Or freaking hate this. Oh my god, I got squats today. Freaking sucks. He's a verbatim, I don't want to be here. Ugh. I should have just thrown up on the spot in disgust. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, my only response, I had no choice, was just be like, all right, man, well, I got legs too. So I'm going to wait for a squat rack and, you know, I don't think I said anything like that. I was just like, yeah, you know, what are you going to do? Right? But, yeah, so that was good. I kind of lost my train of thought just there. We had at least a reasonably mutual understanding that we were both on our grind, which is kind of nice, you know. That's one thing that I think is understated about going to the gym, is if you go enough, you start to get, you know, in tune with the regulars, and you know, don't think that they don't notice you. You know, if you even if you don't have any buddies in the gym, if you show up enough, people know you're there, right? I think you should go up and talk to them, ask them for a spot, ask them for whatever, you know, ask them how they're doing. I'm totally getting off on a tangent here, but that's definitely a good message to send out, I feel, because, I mean, I'll go to the, you know, I've still got a rotation of gyms, because I'm going to be here for a while. I'm not going anywhere. So, the private gym, the Y, some Planet Fitness, some Anytimes, I mean, half of the benefit of the gym for me, maybe not half, but a good chunk of it, it's just fun, man. I get to talk to some folks, have a little bit of a social hour. It's definitely a highlight of my day. Not only the fact that I like the gym, but also, you know, just running into people. Not so much today, you know, solo lift, but I'm not just going to completely hibernate in the damn, you know, Sam Sulek dungeon. I mean, I'm still going to poke my head out honestly, probably like a 50-50-ish split. We'll have to see. But what the hell was I about to say? Lifting, sets, intensity, squats. Oh yeah, so it would then completely opposite the next week. I'd be lifting in that 24-hour gym, totally empty, but I feel like the energy was still there. It's just a different kind, you know, because if it's just you, or if you ever see something that could initially be taken as like a negative, like, oh, there's nobody in the gym, damn, there's no fucking energy in here, or fuck, man, the gym is packed, how am I supposed to work out? You know, or anything like that. I mean, it's so easy to just look at that and then immediately take an excuse-based approach and say, oh man, it's freaking packed. You know, I'm sure some guys might even like totally throw off their lift and maybe just do some sets of curls or flies or something, because they're like, oh, all right, I got myself hyped up for a leg day, but everybody's doing legs. I didn't know Tuesday was National Leg Day. Screw it, I'll do legs later. You know, or just anything like that. You know, it's just not freaking cool. So anytime you see you know, what you could potentially look at as an obstacle, if you can flip it around in your mind, you know, have at least a little bit of a chip on your shoulder kind of approach, dude, that is all the better. And for nobody else but you. I mean, you're literally just improving your situation by giving yourself a better mental perspective. I mean, I feel like I'm getting a little bit spoiled. All the comments are like, oh man, I see somewhere it's like, I thought Sam was gonna rack it, and then he went for 3 more, holy shit. And like, as cool as that is for me to hear, like, oh, I impressed somebody, honestly, I kind of like when I get dogged on, where it's like, you know, Sam, you could have done 10 more. Are you serious? You recorded that set and you posted it? You could have done 20 more. You know, honestly, that's what I want to hear a little bit more, because that can kind of get me fired up, you know. But, you know, to each their own. Whatever kind of random motivational thought process you have, as long as you can convert whatever kind of outside energy into that internal hype, you know, the freaking better. So whenever anybody shows me their you know, fat loss transformations, honestly, that's the like in just a few words, and then showing like a before and after picture, you get this sense of like everything that actually went into it, you know. Because I mean, when these guys show me these pictures, I mean, not only do their eyes light up, but I'm like, dude, yeah, holy shit. This guy knows about calories. This guy knows about cardio. This guy knows about the freaking, you know, energy in, energy out, macro control. And not only that, but also like the self-control that it takes to go through that process. Because I mean, I can't, there's no denying it, you know, being essentially in a state of, you know, perpetual hunger. It's not the easiest thing in the freaking world to do, especially because there's nothing forcing you to keep going. You know, there's absolutely no law that says you can't stop at McDonald's and get a freaking big ass meal. There's no law that says you can't go in the pantry and grab some snacks and eat some ice cream, or, you know, just, you know, overshoot your calorie goal. There's nothing forcing you to do it. And frankly, it's, yeah, I mean, depending on how long it goes for, which if you've got to lose, you know, you don't have to, but, you know, if you're aiming to lose 50, 60, 70 pounds, it's not a quick endeavor. You know, relatively, it can be kind of quick. I mean, I've seen like 100 pounds over the course of just about a year. You'd think that's pretty damn freaking rapid, you know? But it's not the easiest freaking thing in the world. So that's where I think the argument of what's harder, you know, skinny to buff versus overweight to buff, I think the overweight side is a little bit trickier, because you can't half-ass it to go overweight to locked in. You know, regular dude, you can start working out, change nothing about your routine. You're gonna make gains and look like you're working out, as long as, you know, you go pretty hard, right? But for the guy who's a bit softer, you know, he's up in that, you know, 30%, 40% body fat range. You know, if he just starts working out, I mean, it's gonna, of course he's gonna have a change, but it takes a little bit longer. You know, if you want to get leaner too, I mean, there's just no getting around. You got to burn more energy than you're consuming. You know, so that's where I really get a little bit of a, I don't want to say a deeper connection, but a little bit of a mutual understanding, where it's like, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing, and he's freaking doing it, you know. So that's one of the more fun parts about that. But I think yeah, I don't know what we're gonna do. We'll add some extra stuff there for sure. It's a little, yeah, I mean, even if it's just you, I mean, nobody's gonna look around and say, why is that guy walking around on his own? Not even, it is well worth a day to come down to Columbus and check that out. Plus, I mean, it's just nuts seeing all these people in person. You know, you'd think I'd be a little more desensitized to, you know, all these kind of regular open bodybuilder dudes or just whoever, but I mean, if you see him in person, it really is, it's a freaking event, you know? I mean, you never see anybody walking around like that in your day-to-day life. I mean, maybe if you live in freaking Venice and you're going to Gold's Gym all the time, or, you know, wherever else. But for the most part, I mean, that's far and few freaking between. And the screen does not translate reality, especially if you're looking at somebody who's like in the upper 200s, you know, they got freaking 24-inch arms. It's just absolutely freaking nuts. So that'll be fun. I'm getting excited for that weekend. That'll be pretty good. But in terms of this lift today, yeah, hey man, nothing to say. It's a very interesting world right now, fitness-wise. I'm lifting more correctly than you are. No. You're not lifting as close to correctly as I am. You see, I'm doing it right. You're doing it freaking wrong. Yeah. I gotta pull myself out from this argument entirely, because I mean, it's just I think it's a combination of factors, right? Hyper prevalence of just short form gimmick, like 5-second takes, because that's all everybody's watching now, right? Instagram Reels, TikTok Shorts, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, regular TikToks. I mean, that's our primary source of knowledge and information. 2 seconds of what this guy said. Damn, that was deep. All right, that's my new training routine for life. So it's a combination of that, more people posting, and with fitness, there's not a lot to change, right? So if you want to make it a little fancier, spice it up, you got to say some new shit, you know. Guys, I'm no longer really working out. I'm simply visualizing my workouts. Ever since I started doing workout visualization training, dude, I've been blowing up, right? Actually, it's kind of cool because now I can just hit whatever muscle I need to hit that day in the car, or in bed, or just really anywhere, even just the comfort of my own home. Like here, look, I'm gonna imagine myself doing a set of pull downs, and I'm gonna imagine I take it to 3 reps in reserve and really hold the squeeze with a long eccentric. Oh, that was good. Yeah, I'm getting pumped already. Yeah, I'd say too. Excuse me, but no, I was gonna say we've got a variety of demographics tuning into these videos every so often. When do you think was the prime, right? Because I think if we had complete objective knowledge over everything, we'd be able to say very specifically when the prime time to start working out would have been, right? 50s, maybe not. And by 50s I mean the 1850s, right? When the original John Hack was around, or whoever freaking came up with the bench press, like the first bench press. I think around then probably wasn't ideal, but I don't think I'd be the lifter I am today if I started working out right now. Not to dog on anybody that is, but I guess I'm just kind of curious on what your take on that matter is. I would highly recommend slamming, honestly, minimum a liter of water with your pre-workout. That's not for no reason. Right? Don't forget the actual pump, right? It's a lot of water in there. If you were to completely dehydrate me like a freaking piece of jerky, I'm not even exactly sure how much I would weigh. I'm not talking like, bodybuilding, like water depletion. No, I'm talking like if I was completely dried out, I think, if the 70%, 30% ratio is anything to go by, then I would probably weigh about 70% of 260. What's 30% of 260? Do some quick math for me here. Just 85-ish pounds or so. Yeah, actually no, a little closer to, just about 85 pounds. So the rest of that's water, right? Fluids floating around. So would it not make sense that the more fluids you kind of intake for pre-workout, especially if you're already well hydrated, right? The more extra kind of, blood and water you're gonna have to move around to fill up your lats and your traps and your back and everything else, or your legs or your arms or your chest or your back or your shoulders or your head or your knees or your toes, some stuff like that. So that's kind of the main argument against the dry scooping. It's not that inherently doing a dry scoop sucks. It's just because if you only do that with like just one little sip of water, then you're not getting enough actual fluid. There's a reason why all these containers say mix with minimum 8 to 12 ounces of water. Frankly, I think they need to up their game, right? I think they need to increase that to, 12 ounces is a cup, or is 8 ounces a cup? I can't remember. The more that I've gotten into the macro tracking and everything else, in terms of, getting back to what I was saying, definitely slam some water pre-workout. And one more, I haven't sort of dogged on anybody for this for a while. I think it's worth coming back around to. If you know anybody who's ever said, oh man, keep getting exertion, I always get an exertion headache when I'm working out. Oh, it's like every time I squat, I feel like my head's gonna freaking explode. Yeah, what did you drink today? 1 Monster and a Coke Zero? It's not going to cut it. That's not even a liter of water, right? You're freaking, your brain is just going to either swell up or shrink down depending on what kind of weird level of dehydrated you are. That's not what it wants to do. And then if you add the extra like momentary increase in just intra-body pressure from a heavy squat or heavy leg press, I mean, I've been there before. This has only really happened once, but I mean, it was back when I was in school. I was squatting. It was like at least 400, maybe 500-ish, like 495 or so. And I felt like my head was gonna freaking pop just because of how much I was, just how much it felt at the bottom. And I can almost guarantee that my hydration was completely freaking off that day. So something to care about, right? I'm not just saying this for no reason. I'd say that's what are the pillars of, or no, I should. Tenants is already taken. The ancestral tenants, that's already a thing. But the pillars of of Sam's working out, most certainly calorie tracking, macros included, hydration, getting a good amount of rest, and then training like a demon in a good way. Right? Those are pretty much the 4 that I'm aiming for. And as long as those are in place, any details in between kind of just fall through the freaking cracks. Those are the big 4. So, next time if you're passing through the kitchen, you haven't really drank anything, take a mason jar out of the cupboard, fill that thing up, and just slam it. I can guarantee it will improve your pump and your overall just enjoyment of whatever lift you're going to do later that day, if you do so. Frankly, having a gallon jug on you at all times, that should be your EDC. You know what I'm saying? To keep that thing loaded. I'm not talking loaded, I'm talking chambered as well with some electrolytes, just so you never, you never catch yourself, feeling parched. Because I don't need to shoot up to 5,000 calories a day. I just wouldn't use a good portion of those calories, and it would just get stored as additional body fat, right? I need to use as much as necessary, and then gradually ramp it up as I get used to it, because just like when you're dieting down, you have to continue to eat less and less to maintain your rate of fat loss. Bulking up, same uphill battle, right? The more you eat, the bigger you get. The more calories you burn, the more you're going to have to eat to continue to gain weight, right? A 180 pounder is going to have to eat more than the 170 pounder to continue to gain a pound-ish a week. So if you go from 170 to 180 and you're eating the same amount now that you're 180 and you're expecting to continue to grow, right? You see what I'm saying? You got to kind of fight that, fight the good fight. Keep upping your carbs, keep upping your, kind of up everything, right? The heavier you get, the more protein you should be eating. I wouldn't go crazy with the fats. Unless you're in freaking dire straits about your calories and you just can't freaking sit in front of a bowl of rice and just chow down. Let's say you're just the type who can't do it, which is something to work on, but I'm not going to judge you for it. Some guys end up leveraging really calorie dense foods to try to up their calories. They're eating freaking, if you've ever heard stories of people drinking like olive oil or shit, somebody is having a rough time putting the pounds on. That's not an approach anyone should do, nor should anyone recommend, right? But there is a freaking value to trying to kind of inch calories in where you might not really notice them, right? Let's say you do you got a post-workout shake. I'd probably say, just eat some ground beef, but you got a post-workout shake, that's your kind of ritual. Dude, throw some peanut butter in there. If you've got a Ninja, if you got a Bullet in the kitchen, 4 Reese's cups into a protein shake, are you going to notice? Are you even going to notice those extra, however many grams of carbs and fats that are in those with the shake once it's all kind of blended up and it's just still a drink? Odds are maybe not. But if you go too wild, then I think you're overdoing it, right? There's a point where a regular tip or hack taken to an extreme stops being so effective. So it's hard to get around just eating, basic ass regular foods, ground beef, oatmeal, rice. I got to start doing cream of wheat again. That's kind of one that I really like, because cream of wheat with brown sugar and blueberries, dude. I could probably eat a bowl worth 400 grams of carbs of, cream of wheat, brown sugar, and blueberries like it was nothing. Like it would disappear like that. The only problem is I gotta figure out how to make it. Every time I've tried making bacon cream of wheat, I just turn it into like a gooey mess. So if you got a legit method for the cream of wheat prep, I'd love to hear it. I know, you gotta boil it and keep stirring, and I don't know, man. I just want to let it sit and then come back to it once it's ready, right? Like same thing with the ground beef. If you if you put a couple pounds of ground beef into a big ass pot, leave it on low. Like low. You can just kind of watch that thing every couple of minutes and give it a stir on occasion, and before you know it, you got a big ass bowl of cooked ground beef. Now, of course, it's kind of a chore to strain off all the fat, but if you've got steady hands, you can kind of scoop it all into the bottom corner, flip it up into a different bowl, let it cool down and throw it away or something. You get the gist. But yeah, leveraging just more basic meals, it freaking works. So it's I know it's kind of not thought poorly against, but I think there's a certain kind of, what's the word I'm trying to think of, just not discrepancy, certain kind of, tendency to categorize like bodybuilding meals, chicken and rice, broccoli only. Dude, it doesn't have to be that wild. You don't have to do it every meal. But if you're really pushing food and you're trying to, you actually want to gain weight, it's kind of the method, But no matter what, you can't knock it if you're actually moving your body weight on the scale. Gains are gains no matter what. But, my tip, if you're having trouble actually tipping the scales in your favor, look, man, just get a damn big ass salad bowl worth of cooked ground beef in the fridge. Leave it there for whenever you're ready for it. And then, basically on demand, just get yourself a couple, I say a couple, I really mean like 8 ounces or so at a time. Just add some barbecue sauce, have a freaking, have whatever kind of carb source of your choice next to it. And before you know it, holy crap, I'm 190. I was 180 a few months ago, and I'm still just as lean. Whoa, that's a good feeling.